everyone! So, the time has come to make another custom art doll. And since the spooky season is around the corner, I thought I might create a doll with a Nightmare Before Christmas theme. I really didn't want to just recreate one of the already existing characters from the movie, so I thought I might create a new character. Since Jack and Sally are the main characters, and their love for each other is a big part of the story, I thought, what if I tried to imagine what their potential daughter might look like? So, for her new existence as a daughter of some, kind of dead or undead parents, her skin and bone color and her facial expression like they are now look a little bit too, alive. I think I should change that at first. Before I can give her new face, her old one needs to go as well. To do this, I pressed a handkerchief soaked in 100% acetone into her face for a while. And oh, the face is still there. But a beautiful print of it is now in the handkerchief. Yeah, she seems to like the makeup a little thicker. So I had to use some more acetone accordingly. I actually found it a little easier to remove the face from a Monster High doll than it is now from this LOL OMG. Nevertheless, a few Q-tips and a few tissues later, this is what it looks like now. There are still a few stubborn remnants left, but we are going to ignore them. What I notice, however, is that this doll head has an engraved eyeliner. I think that is very disturbing. So next comes a step that is part of any healthy makeup removal routine: sandpaper. I took the roughest paper that I got on hand because I didn't feel like spending a long time sanding. And while I was in the process of removing the thick eyeliner, I thought, why not just rub the entire face with the sandpaper? It certainly can't do any harm. This will give the face a somewhat natural texture, and maybe the color can be applied easier later on and also stick a little better. Yeah, I probably could have taken the trouble to use a slightly finer paper. Well, the eyeliner came off wonderfully. Her skin, however, has been scratched a little more severe than I anticipated. But then I thought that it actually fits the Halloween theme quite well. Like a German proverb says, ein bisschen Schwund ist immer. So, next comes removing her skin flakes. I did that off camera with a few cloth that I then recycled. Okay, time to change the skin and bone color. I bought these acrylic paints especially for this because the acrylic paints that I already have all become shiny as soon as they dry. And I don't want the skin or bones to shine afterwards. According to some Amazon reviews, these colors are supposed to be good, and plus they were on sale as I bought them. The yellow makes me worried though, and I'm not really sure if anyone has used them before. But well, stirring all the colors with a toothpick should help with the separation, so I don't mind that too much. I wanted to match the skin color a little bit to the color of the hair that I'm going to apply to the doll. Yeah, for the hair I bought a wig that was actually intended for humans. It was somehow cheaper than buying already prepared doll hair and you got more, so I thought I'd just give it a try. The wig has both brown and a dusty pink color, and these are more warm colors. In contrast, I wanted to use a cooler color that still matches the hair colors in terms of tone. So it shouldn't be too bright and not too tinted. So, after I mixed my undead purple, of course I also had to add white, I diluted the color a little with water and simply applied it all over her face and body as evenly as possible. And so that I don't paint my fingers, I put her head on a colored pencil. I simply reused the inner cardboard packaging of the acrylic paints to store the body parts for drying. I will touch up the places where the body rests later. I then wrapped the mixed paint with cling film so that as soon as everything on the doll was dry, I could use it for a second coat without having to mix everything all over again. Yeah, and this is what the color looks like when it's dried. The scratches and blemishes on the face are really emphasized by the color, and I think that is awesome. In any case, I'm happy that the paint dried very evenly and above all, matte. Next, I want to add some dimension to the face, so shades are needed. Since the acrylic paint dried almost chalky, I thought I'd try it again with a pastel pencil. On my first doll, pastel pencils and chalk didn't stick at all to the glossy drying paint. And I also didn't have Mr. Super Clear, which might have helped. Today, however, I don't have Mr. Super Clear either. But nevertheless, I want to try it again with pastel pencils because of the look of the new acrylic paint. It actually worked. I'm a little excited about the colors. Normally you shouldn't doodle on the doll's face like that. Actually, you could have sanded off some of the color with sandpaper and then applied it to the face with a brush. And with this method, you also don't actually use pencils, but thick pastel chalks. This would avoid harsh lines that could be difficult to blend, but I just had the pencils at hand, so they had to be used. And it works for me. And I don't want to work very cleanly with this doll anyways, so that's fine for me. But if you want to do it as well, I wouldn't recommend to do what I am doing. Whatever I am doing there. Later on, I'm trying to blend the pencil markings, of course, directly onto the surface with the brush. From the results, you can also see that I generally don't know much about how to do makeup, so don't judge her look, okay? It is individual and she won't let anyone tell her otherwise. Off camera, I sprayed my hard work with a pastel sealer that still isn't Mr. Super Clear. And now it's a lot darker and a little shinier. But I still like how she looks. She's now getting huge wide eyes to get closer to her whatever facial expression. And for this I used white acrylic paint, which dries matte too. Now that her eyes have dried as well, I have to darken the glowing white a little bit with some shadows. For this I take my pastel pencils again. A little dark purple and very dark blue-gray, and it looks better. I, of course, deliberately try to not to use pure black. The fact that I don't own any black acrylic paint is not at all the reason why I do everything without it. Nope. But my full intention is to achieve less harsh contrasts that could possibly distract from the overall picture. For this reason, she's now given deep blue eyes that are almost black with a dotting tool. Using the same color and the same tool, I put an eyeliner over the eyeshadow again and try to be as symmetrical as possible. If the makeup is unprofessional, then at least make it as even as possible is my motto. She still looks a little too cheerful for my taste. We are changing that now. She will keep her parents' characteristic mouth, but it is painted to let everyone know that she basically doesn't like this situation at all, whatever she's in. Ah yeah, and I also thought, oh, let's be brave. I dared to give her a double eyeliner. Yeah, and since I put so much effort into the shading of the face, I can't just leave the body flat. So it also gets a few pastel markings and a few brush blends. As soon as I finished the body, the paint on her face was already halfway dry. So I thought I would finish the makeup with a bit of purple glitter metallic paint as eyeshadow and lipstick. This paint is from the same brand as the new matte acrylic paint I used for the skin and bones. Oh yes, she also got a small pseudo beauty spot under her eye. It belongs there on purpose and not because I accidentally slipped while drawing the eyeliner or something like that. After another layer of sealing, the finished face now looks like this. Yes, it will be a style without eyebrows. Next is the hair. As I already mentioned earlier, I bought a wig that was actually intended to use for humans. It was basically the cheapest wig I could find and I really liked the colors. Or if I didn't like one of the colors as much as it was shown in the product photos, then I would have just used the other one. What would have happened if I had found both colors stupid in this scenario? I'm not thinking about that right now. I like both colors, so the rest is not relevant anyways. The wig is sewn together with many long wefts on a wig cap. These are then placed on top of each other in layers so that you cannot see the seams. I think this wig looks unexpectedly good. All I did now was looking for the individual rows in the cap and then cut them apart with scissors. That was somehow more difficult than expected and took longer than expected. But yeah, eventually I had wefts that looked like that. All I did then was to glue everything in rows and layers on top of each other directly onto the doll's head. I could also have tried making a tiny doll wig, but since I don't plan on ever changing her hairstyle, everything will be glued directly to her head. We don't do things by halves here. The decision about your hairstyle is a decision for your life. Well, gluing it on worked quite well, just as I imagined. But only until I got to the part of her head where I wanted to part her hair. Normally it should have been enough to glue a weft on and then just fold it over after the glue had dried. But somehow the hair wasn't woven tightly enough, I guess. You could still see the seam completely through the folded hair. I thought that this is a little bit terrible. But then I thought, okay, we will come up with something. If I make it look like it's planned, all is well. We don't have any failures here, just happy little catastrophes. So let's think about what to do exactly with these areas later. So I went ahead and glued everything up so that at least she no longer had any bald spots anywhere on her head. And yeah, everything that was still protruding from the head, I either cut off or slapped more glue on it. After everything was dry and the hair was no longer in danger of falling off, I tried to separate the differently colored hair from each other. And then I noticed how extremely tangled the hair was now. I thought, oh, no problem, I'll just comb it through quickly. But nope. I don't know if this is due to wig hair in general, but these knots couldn't be gotten out with a brush. And the more I brushed, the strawier the hair looked. As if I had backcombed it. Even if the knots had long been out, just by combing through it normally, it looks like straw. I was a little bit panicked, but there's no giving up here. We try to work with what comes. So there are definitely hairstyles that look good with knotted and almost matted hair, right? Yeah, and actually I thought, okay, if her hair looks like that and I can't get the knots out, then it's going to be messy space buns. But oh man, try to get normal hairpins to hold in a wig. Even though they seem so matted and knotted, hairpins still slip out of the hair as if they had been smeared with butter. That was indeed challenging. But as long as I kept going to crisscross the needles and stuck them together, they held up luckily. And in the end, it didn't even matter to me anymore that they had become asymmetrical. The main thing was that I had now created something that at least looks like a hairstyle. But at least while I was struggling to get any kind of hairstyle, I had an idea of what I could do with the visible seams on her head. So I have some pretty paper wire roses in my small stash of craft supplies. In the film Nightmare Before Christmas, Sally, the hypothetical mother of our doll here, holds a black rose in her hand from which she plucks the petals while singing a heartbreak song. I thought that black roses could be her daughter's big thing. However, the roses I had were not black. So I had to paint all the roses in the same dark blue that I used for the eye color and the eyeliner and stuff. While I was waiting for them to dry, I thought our character needs some dramatic eyelashes. At first I thought about making these look like her mother's, but after the hair bun disaster I thought neat eyelashes would be a bit more appropriate. So I just took a few eyelashes from a €1 shop, cut them apart and stuck them on. And while both roses and eyelashes had to dry, I thought I should dedicate myself to making a few items of clothing. Unfortunately, I have no idea how to sew properly, but I just do it. Something will come along. I was able to get hold of a few fabric samples secondhand for crafting. They were really just very small test pieces that also had an extremely stubborn white adhesive strip that was much too wide at the cut areas of the material. If you tried to pull it off, you either tore the fabric or an extremely sticky and darkened area became visible underneath, so either this tape had to stay or I wouldn't use it. I ended up just painting over it, so you can't see anything of it anymore anyways. And since I'm using Sally's dress as a benchmark, I'm not too worried about it looking poorly soon or too untidy. That just fits in very well with the generally rougher style. Well, I personally think that imperfect things can look really good and give off a special vibe. So let's go for it. Well, besides, I not only have no idea how to sew properly, I also have no idea how to make sewing patterns. But at least I know that theoretically you would need patterns for clothing. Either you make them yourself or buy them somewhere. I didn't see the need for either, so I just tried to draw and cut something out by feeling. For the arm area, I had in mind to create cap sleeves that would then look like bat wings. But it was only afterwards that I noticed that the material was far too thick and too stiff for that. So I gave myself the trouble for nothing. When it came to the skirt, I thought, long, simple, a few long points on it, can look a bit tattered, and a very long leg slit. I kind of like this rustic theme. No super clean finishes, just roughly glued together edges, and I still think it fits in very well with the rest of the doll. And so that the edges of the fabric wouldn't keep unraveling, I sealed all the cut edges that didn't have that weird white sticker tape with all-purpose glue. And yeah, before I could continue, the glue to seal the cut edges had to dry first. So in the meantime, I have started redesigning some shoes. I had a few broken shoes as a leftover from a Gigi Grant doll in my craft box. The buckles on the sides and on the top appear to be damaged, so they provide a good basis for a makeover. Although these round squiggles appear often in the film Nightmare Before Christmas, you can even see this typical semicircle squiggle shape in the landscape, I didn't want to include these shoe squiggles. I somehow thought it wouldn't, fit this doll. So I picked up my scalpel and removed everything that looked squiggly in small steps. Looking back, I'm no longer sure whether I shouldn't have left them on. I then tried to smooth out a few imperfections. In hindsight, I could have used a little sandpaper or epoxy clay to finish everything off, but I thought that the thick layer of paint and a few glued-on accessories would be enough. Accordingly, I took a wire and bent it so that I could now paint the shoes without painting myself. I applied a thick layer of the same purple glitter metallic acrylic paint as I used for the makeup. After they dried, I took a few stickers from my large sticker collection and arranged them so that I liked them. And, well, so that they hide any remaining imperfections. After that, I just had to simply paint them as well. So, now back to the clothes. Since I don't plan on ever changing the doll's clothes again, I simply glued the skirt and crop top to her bones, just to make a perfect fit. The eyelashes were now dry too, so I was able to trim them all over the place. At first I thought I had accidentally cut off too much, but in retrospect I think the length is good. Then it was finally time to distribute and glue the deep dark blue painted roses throughout the entire hairstyle and thus make all the mistakes invisible. Which means I stuck so many roses in until I got the impression that the entire hairstyle was intentional. I kind of like it now. If all these mistakes hadn't happened, I probably would have never had a hairstyle like that in mind. So mistakes could be sometimes my friends, I think. So, I could now say doll finished, everything's good, next project. But I personally prefer to create a small environment that also functions as a doll stand. Then the doll stands in a context and fits better into its surroundings, I think. So, next I grabbed a wooden disc and I thought that I would like to make a reindeer skeleton as a support for the doll. In the film, Jack drives a reindeer sleigh with lots of reindeer skeletons through the air to deliver the presents instead of Santa Claus. So I think that one of these reindeer's child could then be friends with our newly designed character. Okay, found the idea and implemented it. I found this large wooden disc in an action shop. In order to protect the underside a little from the next work steps, I stuck this leftover marbling film underneath. It comes away at the very end. At some point, I ordered the craft wire with which I am now trying to form the rough basic shape of the reindeer from Amazon. The wire is made of aluminium and is relatively easy to bend, but is still quite stable. And don't worry, I'm just sticking the feet with scotch tape so that I can roughly sketch out where the reindeer will eventually stand, and so that it's easier to change the position while I'm still trying to bend the rest into shape. I also bent a loop or a small circle at the bottom of the hooves. This circle is no longer visible afterwards. It's only there so that I can provide a larger surface area for the hot glue that I'll use to glue everything together afterwards. I tried to model the head individually, while the body was already sitting on my dresser, ready to be glued. At first the gluing worked, but then it happened. My hot glue gun broke during the process. All that came out was black smoke and the glue stick didn't move forward a millimeter anymore. So I ordered a new one and had to wait a few days until it got delivered. At first I thought that I might be able to avoid further hot gluing by simply wrapping everything with Scotch tape. But, well, the wrapped areas became much too thick for a skeleton and somehow also much too unstable. Yeah, whatever. It was worth a try first. At least the hooves were already firmly glued together. So I could glue pink decorative stones of different sizes from the €1 shop to the entire surface using my OOAK all-purpose glue. I wanted to create a stony and earthy surface. As soon as the new hot glue gun arrived, I finally decided to remove the Scotch tape stripes. Oh yes, I mentioned at the beginning that the neck holder of the skeletal body had broken off, so now it was time to glue the head at the right height with a lot of hot glue. If the head sits too low on the neck, it will look like it doesn't have one at all, and if the head sits too high up, there is a risk that too little of the neck will be glued to it and it could fall off. She can no longer move her head like this, but not many skeletons can do that very well anyways. Now I'm going to create the bones of the skeleton completely with Fimo air dry clay. I had been storing the package open for a while, so it had naturally dried out a bit. But that meant that I was able to model the surface structure that bones typically have really well. So here too, I had another happy little catastrophe. What I noticed, however, is that the hot glue loosens a little when it is exposed to water. I didn't know that. That's why the head started to sink again and again. But instead of stopping and looking for a new solution or giving up, I just kept going and thought, I'll think of something. Let's just ignore the problem until there's no other option but to do something. Sometimes you are lucky and it works. Yeah, well, in any case, fortunately, I decided against gluing the individual ribs to the spine with the hot glue in advance. I thought it would definitely be too complicated if I had to model everything around it. The method of first surrounding the wire with modeling clay and then blending the small rib sausage with the spine worked very well. I then added individual details with a silicone brush. After I finished modeling the entire body, I added a little more of the modeling clay where the hot glue started to loosen at the neck to body connection point. So before I continue with the neck and head, everything should dry out first. I waited 2 days for this. To let the clay dry for some days actually helped stabilize the whole thing. There were still a few details missing on the antlers, so I took some wire net bands to add to them. With the antlers, it wouldn't be as complicated as it would have been with the rib cage. Yeah, that's why the wire could have been attached directly to the other wire, and then I would continue with the modeling clay. Yeah, in order to reduce the weight on the wire, you could have hidden a small aluminium foil ball in its head before adding all the modeling clay. But since I didn't do that, the weight was of course too high, which meant that the wire that formed the neck bent further and further downwards. But I just carried on anyway. I could think of something later. I wanted to model the head properly at first. After that, I can still worry about the half-torn neck, right? So I continued to model the head with one hand while the other supported the head so that it didn't break off completely from the body. And yeah, after I was at least satisfied with the shape of the head, I stopped and left the antlers blank for now. I kept looking for something I could rest the head on so that I could let the whole thing dry, but I couldn't find anything that was stable enough. Then I luckily had the saving idea that I could simply tie the antlers to one of my small desk lamps with another wire. It was then so stable that I was able to make a few corrections and it was able to dry without any further problems and without any further cracks. After another 2 days, the moisture had now disappeared from the modeling clay and of course this made the head lighter overall and the connection points so stable that I was finally able to continue working on the antlers as normal. And of course I corrected a few mistakes on the head and added a few details. As soon as everything was dry again, I could finally start with the paint. First I painted the skeleton with a fairly light cream color. I think that the cream color for a skeleton looks a little more natural than if it had been painted pure white. Then I wanted to mix a very dark greenish to brown color to make the soil look earth-like. To do this, I repeatedly dipped the brush into a glass of water to thin out the paint so that I could get into every little corner of every stone. In addition, applying a diluted layer of paint creates a stronger impression that the floor looks naturally colored, so brush strokes, for example, are therefore no longer visible. After the light base color of the skeleton had dried, I took the now dirty or colored water and painted the entire reindeer with just this water. The color pigments were then able to settle into all the unevenness of the clay, and this resulted in what I think is a fairly realistic looking shade. I then colored the inside of the eyes and the mouth with the color that I also used for the earth. Next comes just details. I found this cool branch on one of my walks in the forest. I thought that its shape made it look like a twisted tree, so I really wanted to stick it on the platform too. By the way, I completely destroyed my beautiful work surface. It's just cardboard, but yeah, I'm a little bit sad that all the paint and the glue destroyed it. Yeah. So that the ground looks a little more natural, and so that I can hide the large adhesive surface of the branch, I now just glue on a few pieces of dried moss. And with that, the project is finally done. They now live here on one of my shelves. By the way, I framed her old face after the handkerchief was completely dry. I think it looks way too funny to just throw it away. And I kind of wish I had kept and framed my other doll's face too. Yeah, but I think I'll do that for the next doll customs in any case. Yeah, what do you think of my doll? I haven't given her or her reindeer friend names yet. Maybe you can think of suitable ones for them. Ah yeah, and by the way, this project somehow took a lot of time, so that's why there will be a little easier videos coming online before I create the next doll or the next big craft project. Yeah, and with that being said, I hope you liked what you've seen. Have a nice day, and till the next video.